Thank you, Cindy. Hi, all. I'm Jen Jackson. I know this is just our group, so hopefully everyone knows me by now. I am a member of the Standing Committee, and I'd like to refer to myself today as welcomer extraordinaire, because though my name doesn't denote that, I certainly am. So I wanted to first do my job as welcomer and make sure I point out the community matters, because it's so much really good information, really interesting information in the community matters this week. So I really appreciate everyone's contribution there. I did want to just make sure we pointed out that we are reaching out once again for hospitality volunteers for both ushering and for flowers. It's really important that when we are back in the church in person, that we support that. I know it's much more limited number of people, but hopefully we can get everyone to volunteer a little bit. And I've been guilty, by the way, myself for not volunteering enough. So anyway, just wanted to throw that out there, but also in the spirit of today's Potpourri service, I wanted to give you a little bit of behind the scenes of my virtual welcoming. And I know Cindy knows what's coming up. So when we first started virtual services, and I had my first virtual welcoming, I asked my husband, Wayne, to find something for me to serve as a chime because I had no chime. And so Wayne, being the clever guy that he is, came up with this. Yes, a saw blade. So it has a really good sound to it, but I don't know. So yeah, so this has been dangling from my hanging desk every time I do a virtual welcome. And I put my toes and fingers at risk just for you, so you can have a beautiful chime. I don't know why I haven't traded it out yet for a chime that doesn't require safety shoes, but I think it has a nice tune. So there you go. So that's my welcoming and just trying to set the stage for today's Potpourri service. So enjoy the service, and I will try not to cause myself to bleed as I say, welcome to church.
Liberation is described as crossing over to the other shore, the shore of peace and tranquility, wisdom and compassion. At present, the waters appear choppy and the sky stormy. When we look carefully, though, with clear awareness, we see that the ocean beneath the waves is deep and broad, and the clouds pass through the boundless sky without conflict. Everything is change, and we ourselves, though humble, are not without influence. May this year be a time of devotion to all that is true and good in our world, as we bring forth the great peace that lies within each of us. May we manifest selfless compassion in all our sincere and truthful efforts. These are the words of Jeffrey Shogun Arnold, who's the abbot of the Zen Mountain Monastery in New York. Let us worship. Today, I will light the chalice. And as I light our chalice, we could say the words of our covenant. Love is the spirit of this church and service our law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. Good morning, everybody. I join Jen in welcoming us to our virtual ice-bound Potpourri Service today here at First Church Unitarian in Littleton, Massachusetts. My name's Bill Duston, and I serve as one of your deacons. If you're new today to our service, we welcome you, and we are grateful that you have joined us for our service today. If you would like to leave a record of your presence here today and would like to be contacted after the service, you can go to our website at fculittle.org. And if you scroll down, you will see a virtual pew card. And if you fill out that pew card, you can make a record of your visit today. And we welcome you all. Today's service, which we call our Potpourri Service, as Cindy has mentioned, is a time to give our wonderful minister and music director a day off. We will provide an opportunity later on for the members to share readings, a poem, a story, a piece of literature, or even to show a piece of artwork to all the members, to share that with them. And we will have a very informal procedure of calling on people and allowing you to speak whatever you would like to do after you unmute. Today, our lay minister, who is right upstairs, is Jan Duston, and she is available. So now, without further ado, Monica will lead us in our joyful noises, and thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Since we don't have access to all of the noisemakers in the pew, you're welcome to use whatever noisemakers you have at hand, including your voices and your hands. And I will use one of these. So, yes, I see some people are showing me their noisemakers. Yes. Okay. So the simplest rhythmic noise we can make is just a 4-beat. So, but let's be more creative on that. Let's have some people do the 4-beat. And other people do something like this. Divide yourselves up. Let's go for it. So I'm going to do this. Yeah, Cindy.
I was just going to ask people to unmute if you're, so we can hear you, but you'll have to mute when we're done.
Yeah. And it should sound very not rhythmic because we're all going to be on different, yes, on different internet speeds and what have you, but it will be a joyful noise. Let's go. Ready, go. I love it. All right. Cut. Thank you all. So let's see, what's next on this list? Aha.
Next is me.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Monica.
Thanks,
I'd love if
everybody.
everybody could mute themselves, please. Thank you. So late last night, I was Googling how to record myself reading a picture book so it would look all beautiful and amazing like Reverend Laura always did when we were virtual. And my wife walked into the dining room where I am right now and said, tonight is not the night to learn how to do this. Just show them the pictures. So, so that is what I'm going to do. And maybe I'll teach myself how to do it. So the next time this happens, I'll be able to just pop up a little video. But so here we go. And I've chosen today to read Lemony Snicket's The Lump of Coal. If you liked the Latka Who Couldn't Stop Screaming, you're probably going to like this. It's the same author. Lemony Snicket, The Lump of Coal. The holiday season is a time for storytelling. And whether you are hearing the story of a candelabra staying lit for more than a week, or a baby born in a barn without proper medical supervision, these stories often feature miracles. Miracles are like pimples, because once you start looking for them, you find more than you ever dreamed you'd see. And this holiday story features any number of miracles depending on your point of view. The story begins with a lump of coal, who, for the sake of argument, could think, talk, and move itself around. Like many people who dress in black, the lump of coal was interested in becoming an artist. The lump of coal dreamed of a miracle, that one day it would get to draw rough black lines on a canvas, or more likely on a breast of chicken or salmon fillet by participating in a barbecue. But barbecues, sadly, are for summer, and this is a holiday story, and so takes place in the dead of winter, when the air is gray and wet shoes line up in the hallways, shivering and crying tears of sleet. It is difficult to find a barbecue in the winter, although it is easy to find small animals scurrying through backyards and tipping things over, such as abandoned snow-covered lawn chairs, frozen bird baths, and forgotten bags of charcoal. And this is how the small, flammable hero of our story found itself tumbling out into the world. This isn't the miracle I was hoping for, said the lump of coal. But perhaps if I roll around a bit, I can find something interesting. The lump of coal rolled out of the backyard, taking care to avoid the inevitable puddles of winter, and soon found itself in the center of town. You would think that the center of town would be bustling during the holiday season, but most shoppers were bustling around at the mall several miles away, so there was plenty of room for on the sidewalk for the lump of coal. It window shopped for a while, and then, to its delight, the lump of coal found itself outside an art gallery. In the window were several paintings that looked like someone had taken a dark, crumbly substance and smeared it all over a piece of paper. "I can't believe it," cried the lump of coal. "Here is an art gallery that displays art by lumps of coal. It's a miracle." When the lump of coal rolled inside, however, it discovered that the art gallery was not a miracle after all. "We do not represent artists such as yourself," said the gallery owner after the lump of coal had introduced himself. The gallery owner had a long, oily mustache and a strange accent that the lump of coal suspected was fake. "We have a wide selection of works by human beings that suits us just fine. Please go away and don't leave smudges on my artistic floor." Disappointed, the lump of coal rolled outside. "That wasn't the artistic opportunity I was hoping for," it said to itself. "But if I roll around a bit more, perhaps I can find something interesting." The lump of coal rolled further down the block and stopped in front of a building where powerful smells were wafting, a phrase which here means coming from nearby even though the door was closed. A sign on the building informed passerby that the building was named Mr. Wong's Korean Barbecue Palace and Secretarial School, which made the lump of coal gasp in delight, because I forgot to tell you that for the sake of the argument, the lump of coal could read. "It's a miracle," cried the lump of coal. And certainly there was every reason to believe this was so. A Korean restaurant is an excellent opportunity to enjoy an indoor barbecue. In fact, so many establishments have small barbecue pits installed at the tables, so you can do the barbecuing yourself. I have spent many pleasant evenings in Korean restaurants, taking shelter from the winter cold, warming myself by the barbecue pit at my table, and enjoying the smell of the toasted rice tea, eggplant salad, and pickled cabbage served alongside the roasted meats and vegetables. When the lump of coal rolled inside, however, it discovered that Mr. Wong's Korean Barbecue Palace and Secretarial School was not a miracle after all. The air was filled with the smell of oregano, which is not a Korean spice, and the owner was wearing a pair of very ugly earrings and a rude scowl on her face. "I don't need any coal," she said. "I get all my coal from a Korean restaurant supply factory. Everything in this restaurant has to be 100% Korean." "But Wong isn't even a Korean name," the lump of coal said. "And judging by the smell, I don't think you're using proper Korean spices." "Please go away," said the restaurant owner, "and don't leave smudges on my Korean floor." The lump of coal did what it was told and began to grow very despondent, a word which here means certain that a miracle would not occur after all. "Perhaps miracles only happen to human beings," it said. "Or maybe miracles are only as genuine as Mr. Wong's Korean Barbecue Palace and Secretarial School. Perhaps I should just bury myself and become a diamond after thousands of years of intense pressure." Just when the lump of coal was ready to return to its bag in the backyard, it ran into someone I'm sure I don't have to introduce. He was an overweight man with a long white beard, dressed in a very bright red suit. "Santa Claus!" cried the lump of coal. "It's a miracle!" "I'm not a miracle," said Santa Claus. "And I'm not really Santa Claus. I'm an employee of the drugstore, dressed up and giving out coupons. The real Santa Claus is at the mall." "Do you have any use for me?" asked the lump of coal. "I'm an artist at heart, but I'm very helpful for cooking meat." Santa Claus sighed. "Well," he said, "my stepson is a very disobedient boy named Jasper. His mother used to say he had an artistic temperament, but I think he's a brat. You're just the thing to put in his stocking as a punishment." I guess that's better than nothing, the lump of coal said. And when Santa Claus put him in Jasper's stocking, the lump of coal found that being in a cozy sock was, in fact, better than nothing. And when Jasper found the lump of coal, things became even better than nothing. A lump of coal, Jasper cried. I've been wanting to create some abstract art featuring rough black lines. I'd be happy to be of assistance, said the lump of coal. Egad, cried Jasper, you can talk. It's a miracle. It was a miracle, although miracles didn't stop there. Jasper and the lump of coal collaborated on a number of remarkable objects d'art, which the art gallery sold for an enormous fortune. That was a miracle. Jasper and the lump of coal used this fortune to visit Korea, where they had always wanted to go. And when they came back, they bought the restaurant and turned it into a proper place known as Yi Sang's Korean Barbecue Palace and Secretarial School, after the famous Korean poet who was unfairly imprisoned for crimes he did not commit. That was a miracle too. In the daytime, the two friends cooked genuine Korean food, and in the evenings, they produced works of abstract art, and they never saw Santa Claus again, although they had heard he'd been fired from the drugstore for making fun of someone who was buying a certain ointment. All these things are miracles. It is a miracle if you can find true friends, and it is a miracle if you have enough food to eat. And it is a miracle if you get to spend your days and evenings doing whatever it is you like to do. And the holiday season, like all the other seasons, is a good time not only to tell stories of miracles, but to think about the miracles in your own life and to be grateful for them. And that's the end of this particular story. Thank you very much. I liked it too.
Okay, well, we've now come to that part of our service where we ask for contributions to support our church. And in the spirit of the Potpourri Service, I'm going to sing the ask. So here we go. Our church is a very, very, very fine church with a steeple on the roof and people on the Zoom and everyone doing their best to find comfort and support in each other through these often trying times. So if you do want to donate to FCU, the address, as many of you know, is 19 Foster Street, Littleton, Massachusetts, 01460. Zoom is kind of a miracle of technology, but it's not miraculously enough for me to reach out my hand and take your money right now. So please contribute generously to the support of this community that we all love so much. Thank you. I know.
What do you know?
All right. So now we're into the section of our service that is about community sharing. So if anybody has a story, a poem, a song, a piece of art, something like that, that they'd like to share with the rest of us, please raise your hand using the usual Zoom buttons, and we will call upon you. All right, I see a hand from Sarah Cope. Sarah, please unmute and tell us what you've got.
Okay, I have two quotes from two of my favorite and most thought-provoking authors that I would like to share this morning. The first one is from Joseph Campbell, who I'm assuming many of you have read over the years, but this quote particularly struck me this year. Revolution doesn't have to do with smashing something. It has to do with bringing forth something. If you spend all your time thinking about that which you are attacking, then you are simply bound to that in a negative sense. You have to turn in to find what the zeal is in yourself and bring that out. That's the first one. Okay. The second is from a woman whom I admire greatly and thoroughly enjoy her writings. Some of you have heard me speak about her before, and that is Terry Tempest Williams. She's written a number of excellent books on ecology and the environment. And this is a quote from her book, which I truly love, called When Women Were Birds. For far too long, we have been seduced into walking a path that did not lead us to ourselves. For far too long, we have said yes when we wanted to say no. And for far too long, we have said no when we desperately wanted to say yes. When we don't listen to our intuition, we abandon our souls. And we abandon our souls because we are afraid that if we don't, others will abandon us. And those are my contributions to today.
Thank you, Sarah. Susan Tordella, I see that you have a hand up. Could you unmute and read us or tell us or show us what you've got? Susan?
Good morning. Good morning. Thank you, Monica, for sharing your music. And Carolyn McCreary, too. That was really cool version of "'Tis a Gift to Be Simple." She said it was, told me earlier it was a jazz version, so thank you. So Desmond Tutu died yesterday. He was 90. 1984, he got the Nobel Prize. And so I have a collection of 10 quotes of his I want to share. The first one, I wish I knew this when I was raising my 4 kids. Don't raise your voice, improve your argument. You don't choose your family. They are God's gift as you are to them. All right. When the missionaries came to Africa, they had the Bible and we had the land. Let us pray. We closed our eyes. When we opened them, we had the Bible and they had the land. If you are neutral in situations of injustice, you've chosen the side of the oppressor. If an elephant has its foot on the tail of a mouse, and you say you're neutral, the mouse will not appreciate your neutrality. Hope. Hope is being able to see there is light despite all of the darkness. Do your little bit of good where you are. It's those little bits of good put together that overwhelm the world. If you want peace, don't talk to your friends. You talk to your enemies. Forgiveness says you're given another chance to make a new beginning. My humanity is bound up in yours, for we can only be human together. Your ordinary acts of love and hope point to the extraordinary promise that every human life is of inestimable value. And finally, God's dream, creator, whatever you believe, is that you and I and all of us will realize we are family, that we are made for togetherness, for goodness, and for compassion. Thanks, that's it.
Thank you, Susan, for your heartfelt remembrance of Desmond Tutu, who is well worth remembering. Lynn Courtney, you have your hand up. Could you unmute? And
Yeah, thank you, Monica, and thank you, Susan. I wanted to share something that I ran across in a book that I read a couple of months ago, along with some other members of my book club. It's called The Wednesday Wars. But the quote I'm going to share is from Shakespeare's Much Ado About Nothing. For it falls out that what we have, we prize not to the worth whilst we enjoy it, but being lacked and lost, why then we rack the value. Then we find the virtue that possession would not show us while it was ours. And I think I was struck by how that applies to so many things right now, to what's going on with the climate, to how restricted we've been in being able to be with other people throughout the pandemic, and how that keeps coming back to bite us again and again. And what it spoke to me of was just the importance of the practice of gratitude for what we have right now, and the importance of not waiting till those things are lost to see their value. So thank you.
thank you, Lynn. That was very sweet. All right. I'm going to read a contribution of my own and then turn this over to my fellow deacon, Bill, who will supervise the rest of our participant tellings. So this came about because I heard something from a politician who is part of my own party that I objected to recently. And I ended up writing this little short story that has 3 short stories within it, each paragraph long. So here are 3 ancient versions of an ancient story. I mean, here are 3 versions of an ancient story for your contemplation. In all 3 of these versions, a famous preacher man has come to a rural village to give a sermon on a nearby hill that is convenient for a large gathering of people to both see him and hear him. The people on the nearby farms, the shepherds in the fields with their flocks, and the people in the village all pack up the babies and grab the old ladies, and everyone goes because it's going to be quite a show. They are poor and they don't have much food or drink to bring, but what they have, they bring with them. For the preacher man can preach all day long, and his preaching is so good that you don't even hardly notice the time passing, and no one wants to miss a word. In the first version of this story, the preacher man pauses for a lunch break after a hard morning shouting his sermon to the large crowd of people on the hill and sweating in the hot sun. His belly is empty and his throat is dry, but he can look forward to a very nice lunch, one that was gifted to him by a wealthy admirer in the previous town that they visited. His lunch basket is filled with a bottle of fine wine, roasted meats, fine white rich man's bread baked sweet with honey, fresh fruits, a wedge of fine cheese, and olives pickled in brine and chopped up with herbs, and the best of olive oils to smear on his bread. His disciples have also been generously provided for by the same donor. But one of his disciples notices a young widow and 2 children sitting among the crowd nearby who have nothing for lunch, but they don't leave because they have enjoyed their time listening to the preacher very much and are eager to hear more. "Master," says the kindly disciple, "may I share my lunch with the widow and her children?" "No," the master replies. Then, seeing how puzzled his new disciple is at this answer, he explains, "For our efforts, God has blessed us with these fine lunches and with our continued prosperity. We should not forgo the judgment of God by sharing the blessings he has provided to us with those that God has not blessed, such as this widow and her children. Instead, I will preach this afternoon that those who have not been blessed by God as we have can obtain this blessing by generously donating to our cause and to us, because money and goods given in such a manner are like seeds that once planted will blossom and be repaid by God himself tenfold." "But what if God does not grant prosperity to those who so contribute?" the puzzled disciple asked. And the master replied, "Then that is because God did not find them worthy. and far be it from me to ask God for his reasons." So the disciples ate of their rich and varied food, and the crowd who came to listen to him preach ate whatever they had brought, or in the case of many, ate nothing because they had nothing. In the second version of this story, the preacher man and his disciples are once again breaking for lunch and indulging in picnic baskets filled with the finest foods and drinks given to them by wealthy admirers from another town. And once again, a kind disciple notices the hungry young widow and her children and asks his master for permission to share his lunch with them. "No," the master replies, "for if we give her our rich food and drink, she's just going to run off and sell it in order to buy herself drugs for her own pleasure instead of feeding herself or her hungry children. Eat your own food, my friend, and allow her to fend for herself, for she does not deserve your generosity." So the disciples ate their rich and varied foods and wines, and all the people on the hillside ate and drank what they brought, and the many people who had nothing ate nothing. And in the third version of the story, this one is sort of close to the one we've all heard. The preacher man pauses for a break after having preached hard all morning. His belly is empty and his throat is parched, but he takes his small earthenware jug filled with a poor man's watered down beer and drinks from it, and takes a small basket containing a dark peasant loaf of bread the size of his fist, and 2 small cooked fish, barely enough to satisfy anyone's appetite, and partakes of his lunch. His closest followers, his disciples, do the same. His disciples who have been chosen by their master follow him wherever he goes. They've been to many of these all-day preachings, and they've come prepared with their own small picnic lunches. Admirers in many towns and cities have offered to supply them amply from the best of food and drinks, but they turned it all down because their preacher man is a man of simplicity who eschews celebrity and wealth and lives like a true man of the people, earning his poor meals with the labor of his own hands and with those of his disciples. And he expects all of his closest followers to do the same. Noticing a young widow sitting nearby with 2 children who have nothing to eat or drink with them, he divides his lunch with them, contenting himself with eating only a few bites so that the hungry mother and her kids can have some lunch. His disciples, noticing this, offer their master some of their own lunches and drinks, but the master declines and says to them, "Take your food and your drink and go out among these people," he says, pointing at the teeming crowd on the hillside. "Find those among them who have nothing and share your meal with them as though you were sharing it with me." So the disciples do as their master commanded, each eating and drinking only a few bites and sips, but finding in the crowd the poorest of the poor who have nothing and giving to them the bulk of their lunch. The people in the crowd observed this happening, how the preacher man who had barely enough for himself shared, and how he sent his disciples out to do the same. A murmur arises over the crowd. They each take their own lunch, whether it was generous or poor, and share it with others all around them. Some take their empty lunch baskets and go around collecting foods from those who have more than enough and bring them to those who do not. Some of these baskets full of collected share food eventually make it all the way to the master. And this time he helps himself to the bounty and eats and drinks until he's satisfied. And so does the widow and her children, and so does everyone sitting there on that hill that day. All the remains of this hillside meal are gathered together as lunch is ending and brought to the feet of the master, who rises to begin his preaching again. An indrawn breath and a gasp run through the watching crowd, for there are 10 large baskets filled to the brim with excess food and drink, even though the entire crowd, even the poorest, have eaten and drank their fill. "It's a miracle," they say. But the truth is that this was not a miracle, unless you consider that trust and goodwill and generosity are all miracles. The end. And now, Bill, it's your turn.
Thanks for that, Monica. Just to kick off the second segment here, I want to change the pace a little bit and read a poem that you might recall and might be familiar. There are strange things done in the midnight sun, by the men who moil for gold. The Arctic trails have their secret tales that would make your blood run cold. The Northern Lights have seen queer sights, but the queerest that ever did see was that night on the marge of Lake Labarge. I cremated Sam McGee. And there's a little sidebar to that story in that poem. That's just the beginning of it. I think 2 of our members are going to be going to Lake Labarge this summer up in the Yukon. Bob and Susan Williams are going to be canoeing on Lake Labarge. So I'm looking forward to their reports of whether they see any signs of the cremation of Sam McGee. Anyway, I will now call on Luann and Hugh to share something. If you can unmute, please. Thank you.
Good morning. You hear me okay? You hear me okay?
Yes.
So I received many, many wonderful sympathy cards on occasion of my mother's passing recently. One of my friends, Kim Lin Wong, a woman I've worked with over the years, sent me this poem, and it's called The Rose Beyond the Wall by A.L. Fink. Near a shady wall, a rose once grew, budded and blossomed in God's free light, watered and fed by the morning dew, shedding its sweetness day and night. As it grew and blossomed, fair and tall, slowly rising to loftier height, it came to a crevice in the wall, through which there shone a beam of light. Onward it crept with added strength, with never a thought of fear or pride. It followed the light through the crevice's lens and unfolded itself on the other side. The light, the dew, the broadening view were found the same as they were before, and it lost itself in beauty's dew. Breathing its fragrance more and more, shall claim of death cause us to grief and make our courage faint and fall? Nay, let us faith and hope receive. The rose still grows beyond the wall, scattering fragrance far and wide, just as it did in days of yore, just as it did on the other side, just as it will forevermore.
Thank you. That was lovely. I'd like to call on Ann Donald to share. If you could unmute, please.
This is a prayer by His Holiness, the Dalai Lama. I have it pinned up on my desk. And any time that I'm realizing I'm a little less evolved than I should be, I try to read it again. But with respect to His Holiness, the Dalai Lama, it is a stretch goal. A precious human life. Every day, think as you wake up. Today, I am fortunate to have woken up. I am alive. I have a precious human life. I am not going to waste it. I am going to use all my energies to develop myself, to expand my heart out to others, to achieve enlightenment for the benefit of all beings. I am going to have kind thoughts towards others. I am not going to get angry or think badly about others. I'm going to benefit others as much as I can. Like I said, a bit of a stretch goal, but worth working towards.
Thank you. Cindy, would you like to share?
Thank you. I'm actually sharing something for Ron Willett. He sent this to me and asked if I'd read it to y'all at service today. And I checked and he's not on our Zoom. So I'm going to share it for Ron to you all. It's a poem Ron wrote, so it's by Ron, called As I Enter. Gray cloud of December, so removed from April's promise. Recall the joy? The mother's April goodness pouring into tender buds, itching for renewal into Mayflower life. Spring dawn, your sweet memory eases the year's aging. So many moments of ecstasy. The fire of summer sun rising miraculously from Atlantic waters each morning into brilliant warmth of gardens, trails, and beaches. So rich, we want to believe it rises only for the earth. We look to the rainbow promise in each other's eyes for assurance that happiness is justified. Circles were danced to tales of romance, legends sacred and profane, songs of love's games and labor's justice. Love was birthed, life was sustained, colors were born anew. Then autumn's glorious blazes swept hillsides east to west, moody yellows and pale pinks claiming the horizon of each day's end. Eden's exhausted greens calling all flora and fauna to evening prayer. Fireside songs and songs of harvest toil and bounty dance the salmon moon, mend the shelter, sew the quilt, stalk the lofts as a chill commences the shift. As I enter winter solstice chamber, wise hands steady my step, learned tongues of sage and crone story my way with tested knowledge. See now, pilgrim, how day and night call a truce and jointly decree that dark shall claim dominion over light for earth's northerly flanks. Cast aside doubts, young one. Have no fear, no mistrust, no reluctance about these long day nights of deep shadow. Take heed of bear and serpent, seed and sap, bulb and root, all that know the important business of quiet life through winter's stay. Look not outward for light, but inward. Seek no growth above, but below. Make time to study breathing. Find a cave of inner peace and make a home there for a while, young one. Marvel at the great circle and its patient, abiding love of seasons, cycles, rings, arcs, pathways of stars and planets, and the great orbit which moves and is creation. Thank you. That was by Ron.
Thanks, Cindy, and bravo to Ron for that wonderful poem. I'd like to call on Patty right now. Patty Sardella. Can you unmute, please?
Hi. Hi. I wasn't ready, but I'm ready now, I think. Can you call on someone else and I'll get ready?
Sure.
Okay, thank you. Thanks.
I see Neela's hand up. Neela, would you like to share? You can unmute, please.
All right, well, now for something completely different. My spiritual practice is making art and playing music. And recently, Lori Locasio and I took a class with a guy named Bernd Hausman, whose approach to making art is meditation of different kinds. We did breathing meditations, we did sound meditations, and they produced, as he says, a state of both calmness and alertness, which is a great place to produce art from. So I did lots of stuff. I'm not going to regale you with a lot of things, just a little handful. But if you're interested in seeing my art and its progress, get in touch with me and I will give you a link to my Padlet page where you can see the different columns of different kinds of art that I do. So we were looking at window shades. He and I, he did a one-on-one with each person in the class. And I talked about how sometimes at night when I can't sleep, I'll come into my office and there are lights from outside and shadows that appear on my window shade. And so this was one thing that I did, and then I covered it with a white, which gave the feeling of being in a kind of half sleepy place. So then we talked for a little while, and he said, well, there are two elements there. One is the actual windows and window panes, and the other is what's coming through. So this was the next thing that I did with the different window shapes and the branches. And if you look at it closely, it doesn't make logical sense at all. The branches come in and out in strange kinds of ways, but it was very satisfying to do this. All this time, as I'm talking to you, I recall that feeling of calmness and alertness, and that there is some kind of spiritual expression going on. Then I did another one with branches and windows, but this is completely different, where I simply changed the medium and the tools that I was using. So this is what came out. I'm not going to take the time right now to talk to you about the whole thing, but you get a sense of it. You can see the windows and the branches. Then I moved to a completely different space, sort of impressionistic, where things were much more airy, and the windows disappeared, and there were just particles moving through air with different kinds of coloration. This was very satisfying to me and gave me a very peaceful feeling. And then the last one I'm going to show you, although I did many, many more, was one I did after the workshop, where I was feeling just filled with joy. And I used a medium I'd never used before. These are oil pastels. And just all of these colors from what you saw in this very ethereal one just came out into the world in a much more defined way. So that's my sharing.
Thanks, Neela. That was wonderful to share your creativity in those beautiful art pieces and how you felt about them. That was great. I see Patty. Patty, are you ready to share?
Yep.
Okay, go ahead.
I was thinking that there's a song we haven't heard in a while, so.
You're muted right now, Patty.
Patty, that was my fault. I am so sorry, everyone. I was trying to lower her hand and I muted her just as she started to play. I'm sorry. Patty, my one technical glitch so far. I am so sorry. I'm going to lower your hand now, and let's see. Oh my God.
It worked.
Oh, did it? Oh, good.
Yeah.
Okay, we're good.
Okay. So
Sorry, everybody.
it occurred to me that we haven't heard what you said. It occurred to me that we haven't heard this song in a long time. And maybe it would be a good thing to do this morning. Cindy, you must stop laughing. And if I start to cry, it's because I love this song so much.
Compassion, love
Thanks for singing that, Patty. That was great. It's always part of our service. I see one more hand. Laurie, would you like to be recognized?
Yes, thank you. I keep muting and unmuting and sharing my video and not, because I'm very self-conscious when I'm on the screen. So I'd like to invite everyone. You're hearing me okay?
Yes.
Okay. I'd like to invite everyone to picture in their mind a sunrise in the winter. And I'm going to read something that a friend of mine wrote, and she did include a picture of a beautiful sunrise with pinks and blues and purples and so on. And this is something I shared with my Soul Matters group that helps me quite a bit to get through the dark winters and kind of connects to what Ron had written before. And it's fairly short. So this is written by Anita Sanchez, a friend of mine. Yay, it's here, the end of daylight savings, the time of darkness. The sun is low by 3 p.m., setting by 4. You drive home in darkness. The night seems to last forever. Love it. No, really, I love this dark time of year. It's the way things are supposed to work. Darkness is supposed to come to give us a rest from the light. Darkness is nature's way of telling us it's time to slow down, time to rest, time to sleep, time to heal. Dark evenings are for sitting and thinking. Dark nights are for goofing around on Facebook or binge watching Game of Thrones or whatever floats your boat. All those guilty pleasures that you cannot indulge in on a beautiful June evening with the summer sun still high in the sky. Not that you want to turn into a couch potato, but there's an ancient ancestral instinct to hunker down in the darkness, walk more slowly, go more carefully, give things more thought. We need the darkness. Without it, we cannot see the stars, the moon, the meteors, making bright scratches across the night sky. We need time for owls to hoot and coyotes to howl and prowl. It doesn't last long, the dark. In only a few weeks, the dark starts getting longer. The days start getting longer. The bright light of the holidays will be on us all too soon, catching us in the glare like deer in headlights. So enjoy the soothing darkness. Yawn, curl up in your burrow, and dream of spring. Thank you.
Thanks, Laurie. That was great. I don't see any other hands. Is there any last minute shares? If not, I think, Monica, am I right? That will conclude our community sharing. Okay, I'll turn it over to Cindy.
Thank you. Again, Patty, I'm sorry. On behalf of your deacons, Bill, Monica, and myself, I want to thank you all for joining with us today and for sharing with us at this annual Potpourri service. If it's possible for our closing words, I would love it if you have someone that you can reach out to in the room with you to please do that, or put your hands up towards your screen and we can connect together virtually, whatever works for you, that'd be terrific. The next time we're all going to be together, it's going to be 2022, which seems so futuristic to me. I used to, when I was like maybe in the 70s, we used to guess what life would be like in the year 2000 and how old I would be. And the idea that it's 2022 is amazing to me. And as we greet this new year, I have some wishes for you. May you find light in your darkness. May you find hope in your worries. May you find community in your solitude. And may we all find peace and the blessings of better days. Thank you. Amen.